Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to call to order the regular meeting. It's a little bit special because we're an hour later than we usually meet. Welcome to all of you. I hope the meeting is interesting and fruitful to you. The first item on our agenda is the approval of minutes, and we have some minutes that were passed out just recently. There's a minor change in these minutes, and trustees haven't had a chance to look at them, but are there any questions about the minutes?
No questions, but would move approval.
A motion made and seconded to approve that. Is there any further discussion? Cast your votes, and the minutes are approved. Thank you. We've been asked to make a slight change in our agenda process, in that we're going to move up item 4E to the start of the meeting. But I guess before we do that, we have one other issue that we need to do. We need to ratify the claims. And
yes, sir.
That are passed out to you previously. They're fairly extensive this time since we go over a month of this particular claim sheet. Are there any questions on the claims? They're primarily TIF. I don't think there's any gold bond money in there at all, so somebody else's money. A motion made and seconded. Is there a further discussion? Cast your votes. And the minutes, the expenses are ratified. Thank you. Now we'll move on to item 4E, and this is a resolution. I'll get my other glasses on. A resolution authorizing and directing the general manager and or his designee to negotiate an economic development agreement for subsequent trust and city council consideration with Sutherland Global Services, or Sutherland as is referred to in this document, to provide for certain economic development incentives in exchange for locating their government mortgage compliance center in Oklahoma City and the creation of quality jobs. Do we have a presentation?
Yes, we have representatives from Sutherland here with us this afternoon that would like to make a brief presentation about this project.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having us. My name is Terry Weipert, and I am the Senior Vice President of our government group at Sutherland. And so I'd like to explain a little bit about what we're doing here and what we're going to be doing here in Oklahoma City. So we did prepare, and I guess it's on the screens in front of you, a brief presentation about our Oklahoma City Government Service Center. And as the head of our group, what I'm all about is bringing opportunities into Sutherland that have us deliver on customer service, what we refer to as back office processing, any kind of thing that you think that goes on today that is processed in a customer service center of some type. That's what we're all about. So if you think about your insurance and things, those things are all occurring in some place. Well, in my case, I am pursuing government business, and I am pursuing that with a delivery in the United States. So we specifically selected Oklahoma City because, one, it's a great place, but two, it's proximity to other things that we can do and a workforce that we can also tap for the type of business that we're going to be performing, which I'll explain. Also, because it is what we've won, and I know you'll appreciate some of this, it's a federal government contract. So we have certain terms and conditions and things that we had to do. So the investment for us in the Oklahoma City Customer Service Center is important because it's going to be a government-approved facility, meaning we've met certain security requirements. Now, this is not classified work I'm talking about at all, but just general loan servicing is what I'll explain. And that's important to me because all I want to do is add on more business. So for me, I'm very proud as the Senior Vice President here to say I have an Oklahoma City Government Service Center and I want to bring more work. But the work I'm bringing to you today, if you want to go to the next slide, or I can go to the next slide, go to the next one, is what we did is we bid on an opportunity out of Housing and Urban Development for loan servicing. So those reverse mortgages that you hear about and any kind of mortgage program that FHA has requires a lot of loan servicing. And so I partnered with a company called Novad, and those two names up there is myself and Devon Kelly. And the government also likes you to partner with 8A set-aside companies. Maybe Weebies is a version we use in the state, but those companies that can particularly perform that work. And Devon and I decided to pursue this business together, and so we pursued the HUD loan servicing job, and then we won, which of course makes us excited, and then we have to get to work. And so we've been at work already here in Oklahoma City to get our service center set up, and it's basically our capabilities as a large company, as Sutherland, who is in the business of customer service support and customer service center type work, and Novad, Devon Kelly, who is a former HUD employee, but also has a very strong relationship with HUD, so understood the whole processing side. So we teamed together. We like to call ourselves Team Novad. That's sort of the way you go after it. But Sutherland is making the investment here in the center. So if you go to the next slide, this is all sales stuff I can leave for you, but Novad is a management consulting group. Again, they're going to be partnered with me to deliver on the NLSS program with HUD, and then we will be doing those loan servicing processing services that you're familiar with, names, address changes, payouts, things like that. It's a very large and very important program to HUD. It does require quite a bit of processing, and so we're very happy to have picked the Shepherd's Mall facility, which we are now outfitting completely to staff approximately 125 people. We know we can expand, which was also the important thing to us in that facility. So we're there now doing that. We're going to go live here towards the latter part of September. So there's a lot of work and initiative going on today to get people trained, onboarded, and things. So we're around town quite a bit. The next slide tells you a little bit about Novad. Again, they've been in business for a while. And really, for me, it's just a very important partner because of their knowledge of housing and urban development and the work that goes on there. And the next slide gives you just a brief on Sutherland Global Services. It's a very large company, trending towards about $1 billion, and it's a privately held BPO company based out of Rochester, New York. But again, my government service center is going to be here. I'm based in Reston, Virginia, and really appreciate the opportunity to fly in here today and just give you an overview of this exciting program for us. The last slide just gives you some more sales information about what we do. And again, the volume of work that we do in our other centers throughout the United States is important to us. So I think I answered most of the questions, at least to give you the foundation in 5 seconds. We've been working on this program for over a year and a half, so it's hard to sometimes condense it. But between Novad and Sutherland, and we refer to ourselves as Team Novad, we'll be moving in, we know, with a requirement, frankly, to go live for the government by the end of the month. So, of September, excuse me, we're in August still. Thank God, I could not do it in August.
Day after tomorrow.
Yeah, right, I know, I just realized
Is this your
end of
first
September.
operation in Oklahoma City?
Pardon me?
Is this your first operation in Oklahoma City?
It is our first operation in Oklahoma City, correct. We're going to have an operation in Tulsa.
Now, is this in the old Shepherd Mall building?
Yes, it's Shepherd Mall. Yep, so we're, I know it's been vacant for a while, but we've been spending quite a bit of time refurbishing where we needed to and getting the place. So we'll be glad to offer tours when we're full and operational.
Are there any questions from the trustees? Yeah. Larry?
Have you started hiring your workforce then already?
Yes, we have started to hire the workforce. We've put, we actually have two of our folks that are helping us are here today, and they're doing some training over at the Metro Technology Center. The group over there has allowed us to have a training room facility and do some onboarding. Did I get everything? Joe's my my guy.
We're very happy to be here
Yeah.
in Oklahoma City, and we're very excited about the possibility of bringing a lot of new positions and more careers here. So.
Great.
The city can do to help you move in, please let us know.
Oh, we will. Thank you so much. We're
There
on
are
a
things
tight
we
schedule.
can do, we'll do it willingly. There are things we can't do, and we'll do them gradually. But
Okay.
we'll get them
Appreciate
done
that.
one way or the other. Anyway, welcome to Oklahoma City. We're really
Thank you.
glad to have you here.
Right. Thanks
Thank
a
you.
lot. Take care.
Now, will either of you live here in Oklahoma City?
No, I do have a program manager here, and Shay Terrell, who's right here, is our manager of loan servicing. She lives here, as well as Cynthia is right next to her. She lives here in Oklahoma City. We are hiring 100% from Oklahoma City. We're not bringing in. As the owner of the program, I'll reside in Reston, but be out here quite frequently. And then our program manager, again, will be here in Oklahoma City.
Welcome for everybody to Oklahoma City.
Thank you.
Even the people who have been here before. Any other questions?
Terry, just out of curiosity, what were some of the aspects of Oklahoma City that intrigued you and why you wanted to have the operation here?
Well, in addition to what our facilities folks helped me with in terms of identifying a location, it's also, frankly, the ability of hiring people who have come with some skills and experience that we could put in play immediately. So it's a good workforce you have here. Our HR recruiting team that I have is doing a great job in not having any issues, frankly, which, is always something when you have to start up fairly quickly like this, to find, 100-plus people and also phase them in. It's been a great experience, so thank you.
Additionally, the potential of the incentives played also a very big role in this as well.
Yes. Thank you, Joe. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll move approval of the resolution.
We'll get back on our regular agenda now. We're item 4A, and this is, I guess, the main thing we're going to do today, or one of the significant things we'll do today. Money-wise, it's a big thing.
Actually, this is the allocation of the GOLT bond proceeds from the latest sale of GOLT bonds, and Brent can probably talk a little bit more about this for you.
Yes, I just wanted to brief you on this. This item A, when the GOLT bonds are issued, they are city funds and they come into the city, and we have to, in order to get them from the city to the trust, we have to pass a resolution like this one before you today. What we're seeking to do is get authorization. This will go to the city council on the 9th of September. What we're doing is seeking to get the initial $15 million that was issued in February by the city and the related $12 million that was issued in June, which we're actually closing on this week, transferred to the trust. So when we do the BNSF project, we will have the funds readily available and we'll be able to close the deal. So it's kind of a housekeeping thing. So
This transfer is a normal course of business kind of thing.
yes, sir.
Nothing extraordinary about it, other than the size of the dollars. Okay, we need a motion to approve the resolution. Move to approve. Motion made and seconded. Is there further discussion or questions? Cast your votes, and the resolution is approved. Okay, we'll go on to 4B. This is a companion piece to what we made all this money, now we're going to spend it all. This is a joint resolution approving the allocation of general obligation limited tax bond proceeds and/or investment proceeds in an amount of $23,500,000 for the KC-46A program at Tinker Air Force Base. And this would be a gold bond expenditure, obviously. Kathy, would you like to say something about it?
Yes, we have a brief presentation we'd like to go through this afternoon on this project for you. We've been working with the Chamber of Commerce and Tinker Air Force Base for, I think, about 2 years now, maybe pushing 3, on trying to find a way to expand the Air Force Base so that it could take on additional missions. And this is the result of those 2 years' worth of work in the purchase of the BNSF rail yard that lies south of the Air Force Base and just north of the old GM facility, which the Air Force now also has control over. So just as a little bit of background, in April 2011, the Air Force contracted with Boeing to construct the new air refueling tankers, and those tankers will be maintained at Tinker Air Force Base. We believe that the first delivery of those tankers will take place in April of 2015, if I remember right, and so we will begin maintenance responsibilities at Tinker in about 2018 when they begin their regular maintenance cycle. Go to the next one. The KC-46A, go to the next, and go to the next one. Sorry, I'm used to flipping my own slides. The KC-46 maintenance program will add about 1,300 new jobs at Tinker. The average wage will be about $62,000 a year for a $75 million annual payroll. We believe that about 2,000 indirect jobs will be created by this project, and that the construction expenditures associated with building the new hangars and facilities for the maintenance will will cost about $500 million that will be funded by the Air Force. The next slide shows a map of the area, just to help you get your bearings. This is the old marshalling yard north of the GM plant. And then the next slide shows how the new missions would lay out on the property. The first part of it on the right-hand side of the slide is the hangars that will be required for the KC-46A maintenance activities. The others illustrate how additional missions could be added on this property in the future, and we believe give Tinker a real kind of leg up on competing for those other missions in the future as new planes and products are developed. So just to go back through the chronology a little bit, in March of 2012, the Chamber was asked to intercede for the Air Force in acquiring the BNSF rail yard. The Chamber worked with BNSF. We identified that the Oklahoma Industries Authority would be the best entity to try to work with the Chamber and the Air Force and the county to bring about this purchase. In November of 2012, BNSF's response to the Chamber placed a value on the rail yard of about $75 million, and we began negotiations. In February, we reached an agreement of a $44 million purchase price. Go to the next one. Just as a reminder, when we first began working on this, we thought that the allocation from the city was going to have to be about $26 million from the Gold Bond Program. Since that time, the county has identified some Tinker bond funds that were issued sometime in the past that they have decided to allocate to this project. So the funding for the $44 million purchase price has changed slightly from what we had originally begun with. So now the portion that will be funded by the city is $23.5 million. The portion to be funded by the county is $12.5 million. 10 of that is from a Tinker bond issue that they have already issued the bonds and sold them and have allocated the proceeds to this project. The other $2.5 million the county commissioners will act upon later this week. And then the Air Force will allocate $8 million to the project. One aspect of this is that we have been working with the Air Force to see if the county and the city could receive the quality jobs payments back that would ordinarily be associated with the creation of these kinds of jobs. So earlier this year, we sponsored some legislation to change the Quality Jobs Act to allow a public entity, a local public entity, to be the proxy for the Air Force in applying for quality jobs. And the Air Force has agreed to do that. They've agreed to provide us with all of the job data and numbers of jobs and salaries of jobs that we need in order to apply for the quality jobs. So what will happen is that the OIA will apply for the quality jobs, and then as those payments are received, they will be allocated back to the city and the county based upon our proportionate share of the purchase price. So the city will receive about $21.1 million back, and the county will receive about $11.2 million back. The first payments won't be received until 2018 when the jobs come online. So we do have a little bit of delay between now and receiving those payments. We've also been in discussions with Oklahoma County about allowing the city to receive the first $5 million of payments from the Quality Jobs Program, because we are using our local incentive fund that can be used for any kind of economic development in Oklahoma City and isn't specifically tied to Tinker Air Force Base. So go to the next item. This just kind of summarizes where we are right now. We are in the process of finalizing all of the agreements. There's some very lengthy agreements between the Air Force Base, the OIA, the city, the county, BNSF, in order to make all of these transactions come together. The item before you today, the first item, allocates the $23.5 million in general obligation bond proceeds for this program. And then item C is a resolution that authorizes the execution of documents in order to complete the transaction. It has a really long title, and we can read it if you want to, but in essence, it authorizes the chairman to execute documents and the mayor as well. So these items will be going to the city council on September 9th, and then we anticipate that closing will be on September 23rd. So the trust would not meet again because of the summer schedule that we're on, so that necessitates item C. I'll be glad to try to answer any questions that you might have. We have Randy Young and Gary Pence here with the Chamber of Commerce, who've been very instrumental in dealing with all of the issues related to the Air Force, and they are the experts about the planes and the mission and all of those kinds of things.
Any other questions? Yeah.
This should be a simple question. The acquisition was for 156 acres, but the KC 46A is going to take approximately 100 acres. Do we assume that that extra 56 acres will be for additional opportunities?
Yes, absolutely.
Other questions? Who actually owns the property?
BNSF owns the property.
Who will own it after we get through this transaction?
The Air Force will own it.
Yeah. In fact, this noon we had General Wolfenbarger, the Air Force Material Command commander here, and she indicated in a question that was asked to her, what about the next projects? And the next project, if you look on those middle hangars, would be for the long-range strike bomber that's in research and development right now. There are RFPs out to Boeing, Lockheed Martin, and Northrop Grumman to build that aircraft. In 2015 budget, Congress has appropriated $900 million. So that's off and running. And we would look at that aircraft to potentially be in there for maintenance in the mid-2020s.
Other questions?
Just a comment and maybe some context if it's appropriate, Mr. Chairman, a word that Gary will remember. This has been a long time coming.
Right. You were with us on our
I
first visit
recall
there.
9 years ago, I think,
That's right.
we traveled to Fort Worth to talk with the corporate decision makers about their willingness or unwillingness to sell this parcel. I mean, this is Oklahoma's largest single-site employer. Has an enormous impact, as you all know, to the economy. My hat off to you for your perseverance, and Kathy and John and everybody's good work over the years. This is a much more reasonable number than I recall from our lunch visit.
It was over $50 million at that time.
Yeah, and with a pending public bond request, I think they thought it was unlimited. But the public is saving some money and really doubling down on a tremendous opportunity for 1,300 jobs, plus the potential that Rhonda mentioned. So I just wanted to offer that context that this is a good deal. It looks like a lot of money, and it is a lot of money. But what an incredible investment opportunity, and perseverance paid off. So my compliments to you all.
Yeah, as you notice, there's 1,321 jobs will go with the KC-46. Probably at least another 1,000 would go with the long-range strike bomber. And then potentially for another advanced tanker out in the future, be another 1,000. So we're looking at over 3,000 potential jobs in that 156 acres.
Well, as old as the Air Force planes are, we ought to have plenty of business out there.
Yeah, and at KC-135, of course, most of the tail numbers have years of somewhere in the late 50s, early 60s. So they've been going, and they're supposed to be around for another till 2040. And so you'll see this KC-46A will probably be going through maintenance here until sometime in the 2060s. I mean, that's how long they keep these aircraft.
It's a good project. Lots of money, lots of great jobs. So, Kathy, congratulations. Any other questions?
Second. I think Jim moved. I'll second.
We have a motion made and second, I think, for the resolution. Item 4B, any further discussion? Questions? Cast your votes, and the resolution is approved. And item 4C is a companion item. Kathy, you want to say a quick word or two about this one?
And just to reiterate what I said before, this resolution authorizes the execution of the documents necessary to get to closing with all the different entities that are involved.
So moved.
Have a motion made and second. Thank you. Are there any further questions or discussion? Cast your votes, please. And the issue passed. Very good. Thank you. I think we owe a debt of gratitude to these people who work so hard on this project, because the benefits to Oklahoma City are just almost incalculable. And obvious with all the players in it, it wasn't a very simple thing. So anyway, good work. Item 4D is the next one. This is a project resolution authorizing and directing the general manager and/or his designee to negotiate an economic development agreement for subsequent trust and city council consideration with Enable Midstream Services, LLC, to provide for certain economic development, incentives in exchange for locating the job in the city. And I know the people in Houston were very jealous of us getting headquarters here.
We have a representative from Enable, Brian Walford, is here to make a presentation about this. Just as a reminder, it's for 108 new jobs in Oklahoma City. I believe the average wage is $120,000 a year. So we're really, these are very high quality jobs, and we're happy that the decision was made to locate this company in Oklahoma City.
Thank you, Ms. O'Connor. Before I begin, Mr. Chairman, I just want to congratulate you on your recent graduation from OCU in energy management. And I mention that for a very important reason. His capstone project was on Enable Midstream. So if I need some help, I may defer to the chairman during the Q&A period.
I remember when it was called Energex.
That's it. That's it. Real quickly, I've got a few slides. If we could go to the first slide. Just to kind of give you a little sense of what Enable Midstream is. Enable Midstream was created in May of 2013, and it was formed out of two entities. One was the Energex midstream business of OGE, and you're all familiar with OGE. The other piece of that was the midstream business of CenterPoint Energy. And if you don't know CenterPoint is a company structurally very much like OGE Energy in that it has electric and natural gas distribution utilities, but it also had a pipeline component, CenterPoint Energy Field Services. So these two entities were put together in May of 2013 and went public in April of this year. So we've got two very great general partners behind us, a lot of rich history with both of those companies, and we're excited about the prospects for Enable and what that means for the jobs outlook in Oklahoma City specifically. Just real quickly, the business we're in, natural gas midstream business, is gathering gas at the wellhead, processing that gas, transporting it, and providing storage services. We're also getting into the crude business in the Bakken region of North Dakota as well. But this kind of gives you a sense of our value chain from the wellhead to the end user. So we occupy a great deal of that space. Next slide. This gives you a sense of the footprint, roughly 11 states in which we operate, and of course, much of that is contiguous to where we are here in the region, with the exception of North Dakota. And we have one crude gathering component in North Dakota and in the process of building the second. But this kind of gives you a sense that of, when we combine these two entities, actually how big of an organization we were creating. Since the customer base, we've got a very strong customer base. You'll see some of the major players on that slide, both locally and regionally and globally. And we serve a large number of those folks and provide services at a variety of different levels across that value chain. So getting into the meat, roughly today we employ 1,900, it's 11 states. The market or the revenues pro forma of about $3 billion. We haven't had a fiscal year completed yet, but market cap-wise, just to kind of give you a sense of size, we went public on April the 11th, and I think we were that day bigger than both parents in terms of market cap. So there was a great organization that was created in April of this year. Getting to the jobs picture,
as Ms. O'Connor said, we're looking at 108 new jobs in the city that average first-year wage roughly $131,000, by year 5 over 100, and looking at investing, $4 million total first-year payroll, with a $10 million, almost $11 million payroll in the fifth. And in terms of just investing in infrastructure, roughly $4 million of investment thus far, and through 2014, our current offices are in Leadership Square, and we are continuing to consume quite a bit of square footage in Leadership Square, and anticipate continuing to add additional office space in those facilities going forward. Lastly, just to kind of give you a sense of economic impact, estimated for Enable, we're looking at roughly a little more than $203 million in the first 3 years, with property tax revenues of $244 in the first through the first 4 years, and then a little over $100,000 from the fifth year on. That's a nutshell of who we are. So if there are any questions, I'll take those and deflect them to the chairman.
I do have a question. First of all, congratulations, Brian.
Thank you, sir.
This venture, you've done good work other places, so I'm glad to see you're helping them land on their feet. Just a curious question about the drop from first-year wage to fifth year. I know we see that often, but I wonder if you could describe kind of what Enable is expecting from its own experience to see the drop from 131 to 100.
And just real quickly, I have two resources here to help me to make sure that I do answer this correctly. Matt Johnson, who's our Senior Director of Tax, and Rebecca Priest, who also serves in tax and state and local tax director. And I'm going to answer the question, and I may be entirely off base, but a lot of these first-year salaries are tied to very senior level positions. We've added CFO, we've added a number of vice presidents. Those salaries are going to be at a higher level. As we go forward, those salary ranges will drop accordingly because we have those positions in place. Did I get that right? Okay. Others?
Further questions? Okay, Chair will entertain a motion to approve. A motion made and second. Is there further question or discussion? If not, cast your votes. And the item is approved. Brian, thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Just as a matter of information, the CenterPoint Energy operates in Houston as Houston Lighting and Power, I think. So they still do that. It's an old name in the utility business, very strong. This was interesting, looking at the negotiations that went on when they put these things together. There were two utilities. Utilities are very conservative, very risk-averse, and so the project went together sort of slowly, compared to some of these other mergers that have taken place. But it was, I think, a much more solid foundation. So, anyway, congratulations. It was a great project. Okay, that was item D, and we've already completed item E. This next one is item G. F. I lost F. There's F. Okay. I'm sorry. Is amendment number 3 and change order number 3, projects PC 0394 13A and WC 0806 and SC 905 project 180 landscape package. We have an expert here on project 180. Are there questions we need to ask him? Eric, is there anything you'd like to say about this project?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think just as a general update, Project 180 is still proceeding as scheduled. The change order and amendment that you have today is just to take care of some changes that had occurred in the field. There were some water line revisions. There were some sanitary sewer revisions. You'll see that is actually a net deduct to the actual contract of $116,000. The last thing that it does is it removes the thermoplastic striping, the striping that we've had some issues with in the downtown area, and we'll replace it with the new striping materials. And so that's also included in this as well.
When will the new striping be finished?
We actually have the contractor working now on Sheridan Avenue, so if you've driven down Sheridan, you'll notice that some of the stripes have been removed. They're being removed with a water jetting process, so it doesn't damage the pavement, but we would expect that that's actually already started, but they're doing it in small pieces so they don't disrupt traffic. But I would say over the next several weeks, you'll see most of the striping that has started to fail be replaced.
Are there any other questions or comments? Project 180, is it getting completed, working towards completion? Or?
It is, and there are actually 2 additional bid packages. I think the last update that we had, we talked about packages 6 and 7. To make those more biddable packages, there's now a 6A and a 6B, a 7A and a 7B, and so 2 of the 4 have been bid. The other 2 will be bidding here at the end of this year and the very beginning of next. If you remember, that final package is actually the Gaylord improvements in front of the intermodal transit hub, and so those will be some of the final improvements for 180 here bid just in the next, say, 6 months.
Are there further questions or discussion?
No, but move approval.
Motion made and second to approve. Please cast your votes. The item is approved. Now can we do G?
Yeah.
Item 4G, ratifying and approving addendum number 1 and number 2, adopting joint resolution with the City of Oklahoma City, extending time to award contract and awarding contract to Traffic and Lighting Systems, LLC, Project TC 0438, Project 180, signal installation and repairs, $823,000. Eric, can you say anything about this project?
Yes, this is actually just a rebid of a contract that we already had in place. I think, as most of you know, the poles that were procured as a part of 180, these could be the signal poles, this would be the street lighting poles. They are specialized for the city. There's no other poles like them. This contract helps make sure that we can keep those replaced if we do have a knockdown, if there's maintenance, or if we just need to purchase more for expanded areas in the downtown area. That makes them available under this contract. So this is just a contract to enter into a TLS. We've done previous work with them. It's also renewable for 2-year increments.
Other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Eric, it seems, is this normal that you would receive a bid for virtually almost half of the other bid? Traffic and lighting at $823,000, Mid-State at $1.6 million.
I think that sometimes we do see a significant range in bids, and I think maybe just, TLS may have just been more familiar or more comfortable with this project, but no, it's probably not common that you would see a bid that's more than double. But the low bid is in order, and it was below the estimate that we had for the project.
And you don't perceive to suffer inequality or anything in that?
No, we do not, and again, we've had previous work with Traffic and Lighting Systems, and so they've been a great contractor for Oklahoma City.
Any further questions or discussion?
Move approval.
A motion made and second to approve. All those are there any further questions? I should ask. Please cast your votes. Item G is approved. Item H. Flaming Lips Alley. It's really, Larry will like this project.
I think this is a project for the preliminary report on the Bricktown infrastructure improvements. This is a tax increment financing project that was approved several months ago, and Brent is going to go through a presentation, I guess, to talk a little bit about the kinds of improvements that we plan to do in Bricktown.
We've been working on this project for a little over 2 years. Staff working with the downtown OKC and Public Works Department, and we probably 6 months ago, we hired Cabinets Engineering, and Brett Cabinets is going to come and give a short presentation on this project and talk about what we're trying to do in the Bricktown area.
Thank you, Brent. As Brent said, I'm Brett Cabinets with Cabinets Engineering. Briefly, we're going to go through the recommendations of the preliminary engineering report. You all have a copy of these slides. It's a handout here. The first slide that you see is basically the project, the primary project area. When we initially went through the scope with Brent and staff, basically what we were looking at is improvements to the existing bridges, handrails, and sidewalks in the shaded area up there, basically north of Reno Avenue to Flaming Lips Alley, from Mickey Mantle west to the railroad, essentially the original Bricktown Canal area. One of the things that we went through when we started our initial kickoff meeting were some of the additional items that we saw and that staff asked us to take a look at were also the landscaping and the lighting in the initial Bricktown area. So we also looked at that. So the second slide that you see is more of the areas that was extended for the lighting study that was inclusive in our preliminary engineering report. The next slide basically shows some of the project issues that we saw, and basically we went down to two things. Aesthetics and accessibility were the two big primary infrastructure problems that we saw with the Bricktown area. The general wear and tear on the handrails and stairs, sidewalks, and other hardscape amenities such as the edging pavers for the landscape areas, boat moorings, and also light standards and light columns in those areas were not up to what we would consider par to today. Again, you have to remember that most of these infrastructures were installed 15 years ago, and even though they have had some maintenance done on them, they do have shows of wear and tear after 15 plus years. The other aesthetic about this is it's a different color scheme than what is on Lower Bricktown or south of Reno Avenue. So one of the things that Brent suggested is that we look at a common color theme throughout the Bricktown Canal area. Some of the other things that we also saw from an aesthetic standpoint was the inadequate irrigation and landscaping, and then the low street light levels, particularly along Oklahoma Avenue. So the accessibility issues that we see on the next slide, basically non-compliant ADA sidewalks, primarily the in-sidewalk drains that are in the paved areas along the canal, and also the dislodged and missing blocks along through there that also create tripping hazards through there. Sidewalks not along the natural walkway. I think the middle slide or the middle picture that you see up there where you come down off of a stair landing and you come into a perpendicular sidewalk where you can see where majority of the folks that have walked down through there are not wanting to walk perpendicular. They're wanting to get from point A to point B. They take the shortest route. We see a lot of that in the Bricktown area along the canal. And then obviously difficulty for our maintenance vehicles that are maintaining this area. The lower photo you see there is is one of the maintenance vehicles that's run off the edge of the path and is deteriorated the landscape area in that in that photo there. So the proposed improvements, we looked at two different ways. One, a base bid, which was part of the original scope of work, where we identified the bridges, the handrails, and the walkways, and then the ad alternate here in just a moment. What we are going to do, we propose repainting the bridge structures, and these are the traffic-rated bridges. They are not the pedestrian bridges. The traffic-rated bridges are in very good structural shape. They were powder-coated when they were originally designed and constructed, so they do not show a lot of wear and tear. They do have a little bit of fading over the time, 15 years due to sunlight. Basically what we will do is prepare the bridge for structural steel for painting. It's a two-step process of an epoxy-coated base and then the acrylic color and the gloss to the new bridge. Handrails, the good thing about the handrails is we can detach them and not have to paint them on site. We can take them off site, prep them, paint them off site, bring them back and reinstall them. The other thing, there is some traffic rails that do have some lead-based paint. Those are removable that we can take off site, paint them in a safe and secure location, bring them back and reinstall them on site as well. Sidewalk improvements, basically correct the dislodged pavers along the canal, adjust the area drains like we had shown in the middle photo right there, raise those up to where they meet ADA compliance for accessibility, and then add the additional pavers in the areas around the natural walkways and pathways throughout the canal. Finally, we looked at in the base bid is the replacement of the stairs and rehabs in areas where the concrete has deteriorated or the steps do not meet ADA compliance as far as treads or visibility through there. One thing that we do want to note that in the base bid items that we've talked about here, we did not find any real structural damage. It's mainly cosmetics and aesthetics. So that is good, and that's a cost savings that we were hoping to find through this. The next slide is what we had talked about, the term to add alternates, because these were not originally part of Brent's scope of work and budget constraints. But the landscape and irrigation system, we think, is needed through there. Again, in 15 years, the efficiencies of the landscaping systems are so much better now that we could see a potential of 20% savings on water. We know that that is a very valuable commodity right now. Replacing the sprinkler heads with newer, more efficient ones in those locations, and then updating the controller systems where we get the rain sensors and also leak detection as well through there. So we see some valuable means to improve those things. And then lastly is the street lighting. In the lower right-hand corner, our traffic engineering company that did the street light levels looked at the original or the location of the extended area, which is from Main Street south to Reno, from the railroad over to Joe Carter Avenue. And about half of the lights through there is adequate for the street light. But you'll notice, though, up Oklahoma Avenue up to Main Street through that area, that lighting levels were so low that they hardly even took a reading on our instruments out through there. So we would propose that if there's available funding for this, to improve the street lights through that area to make it more highly visible and give the patrons of Bricktown a better walking atmosphere in the evenings. We split the preliminary construction cost estimates up into two phases that we've talked about, phase 1 and phase 2. The base bid was under the original $600,000 construction estimate. We feel that we did add some contingencies in there. There are other items that we put on our wish list that if we did have available monies that we would like to improve. For instance, the guttering along the upper walkways has been deteriorated, and at a cost of about $15,000 for that. We would think it would be a good thing to improve that as well. We do have some other items on there. One notably is item number 4, the elevators and the lifts and the pedestrian lifts that are down in there. When we started working on the preliminary engineering report, we visited with Parks Department, who is taking care of and responsible for the maintenance and upkeep on those elevators. They were in the process at that point in time of procuring bids to repair and or replace those. When we visited with them again earlier this week, they're still in that process. They have not done anything with it, so hence the reason why you see a dollar value of 0 for that. It's not that we haven't forgot about that. We just feel that the Parks Department people were already taking care of that, and we did not include it in our scope of work. And then you see obviously the landscaping and the lighting, street lighting, along with the contingency for those items, and you end up with a construction estimate of about $1.5 million. Lastly, the schedule, if this is so approved today, will go towards the council concurrence in September 9th meeting. We'll finish our construction plans and specifications for staff review in late October. Bid documents submitted in middle of November, with bids due in December and award in December. And then we'll begin construction in February and be complete before May 1. Any questions?
Very good. Yes, go ahead.
On the phase 2, that alternate relative to street lighting, you said for point number 6, it's over $500,000. It said remove gas lanterns.
Yes.
Do you replace them with something?
Gas lanterns aren't very efficient when it comes to street light levels through there. It was our recommendation to remove all of the gas lanterns. Most of them are inoperable now. They're very hard to maintain. They have parts that are very difficult to get nowadays because of the high efficiency LED lighting is pretty much predominantly taking over in the street lighting markets now. So our proposal is to remove those, replace the sidewalk in those locations back to a natural look and just replace the street lights with high-efficiency LED lighting.
Any additional questions? I think it's a great project.
All right.
I'm very excited about it, and I know Steve Lackmeyer will be also.
I'll move approval of the report and the recommendation for city engineer to proceed.
A motion made and second to approve. Any further discussion? Cast your votes. And the item is approved. Okay, item 4I. Change order number 4, project MC0360, improvements to the south bank of the Oklahoma River, Meridian Landing Promenade, south bank of the Oklahoma River from South Meridian Avenue east to the existing Oklahoma River cruise boat dock area. Increase of $3,753,000, accepting project and placing maintenance bond into effect. Are there any questions or comments on this project? Larry, are you pleased with him? That's his territory, so if he's happy, well, we're all happy. You might describe the project if you can. Describe the project. Or should we have Eric describe the project? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot, Larry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the final acceptance of the Meridian Landing project, obviously one that I know that we've brought several updates for, but generally speaking, this included a lot of riverfront, frontage-type projects, enhancing the trails, some landscaping, really just to create some public spaces. And, of course, this is an area just west of Meridian where we have a lot of the new hotels and some things, so it helps activate that area of the river. Obviously, it's very visible. I mean, I think we would encourage anybody to go look at the opportunities that are there, walking, biking, even through the water access as well.
And we're hoping that this area here, of course, will be continued to the west further as the work on the Oklahoma Trail goes all the way up to Lake Overholser. So this is kind of the midpoint. And we're hoping that this particular area will become a real epicenter for tourist activity, because the Meridian area, of course, houses many of the people who come to the horse shows at the fairgrounds. The fairgrounds project is coming up. The new arena is coming up. The new hotels along the river in the Meridian area are adding some zest to it, so we're looking for great things out of this.
Any comments, additional questions?
Move approval.
Have a motion made and second to approve. Further questions? Cast your votes. The item's approved. Thank you very much. Item 4J, resolution to approve a change in certain forms required to be executed by the developer and the developer's lender in relation to the 4th Street Apartment Residential Project, Economic Development Agreement, and funded by TIF. Kathy, would you like to say something about that one?
Wiley may be able to give some more details on this one, but these are changes that have been requested by HUD, who is the guarantor on the loan for the 4th Street apartments, and Municipal Council has been working with HUD and the developer to reach an agreement about the changes, and these are the changes.
What HUD has requested, they didn't want on their subordination agreement to be, they wanted a clarification that we would not go after them if there was a default for the entire period of the life of the TIF. And we wouldn't do that anyway, so we made some modifications to the forms that you prior approved to make it clear that we're only interested in taxes that might be owed on a date in case there's any default on that date.
It's clear as mud, but go ahead. Any comments or questions? A motion made and approved. Motion made and seconded to approve. Is there any further discussion? If not, cast your votes, and the item is approved. Thank you very much. Okay, we're up to L, is that correct? K, okay, I put K on it. Okay, yeah, it's a joint, it's a...
Second.
And motion and second to approve item 4K. Any questions, comments? Cast your votes, and the item is approved. Now we can do L. Item is a contract with BKD for audit services, and this is a common practice within the city to use an auditor that is auditing the city's books as well, the total books, and so it does for consistency and accuracy and ease of auditing. It's one of those things we have to do. Are there any questions or comments about this?
Fair price for the amount of volumes of these various books and funds, so I would move the item.
That was a motion to approve. A motion made and second to approve now. Any further discussion? If not, cast your votes. And the item is approved. Thank you very much. Okay, this is item 4M, a quarterly report for the OKC Technology Business Launch Initiative for the fourth quarter of the fiscal year 13 and 14 for gold bonds. Who's going to have a presentation here? Scott, are you going to do it? Yes. Welcome to our den, Scott.
Thank you. It's kind of an interesting contrast. You heard from the largest employer in projects involving the largest employers in Oklahoma City. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the very smallest employers in Oklahoma City. And I'm mindful of your long agenda and we're late in the day, so I'll try to proceed quickly. This is actually the final quarterly report for our 4-year joint project that we worked on to try to stimulate startup businesses in Oklahoma City. And I think I have some pretty good things to report today. Just as a reminder, the areas that we chose to work on was, number one is what we call venture advisory services or executive in residence. And that's where we went out and provided like CFO, sales executive, marketing assistance to these startup companies. Second thing we did is we provided access to capital by trying to create a group of angel investors here in Oklahoma City that would actually invest along with us in these startup companies. We also did general entrepreneurial development things where we brought in nationally recognized entrepreneurs to help kind of tell people, visit with companies one-on-one, and try to inspire larger groups of entrepreneurs to follow the entrepreneurial path. We also did the I2E Fellows Program to try to encourage students to maybe follow that path. And then lastly, we did different networking events and outreach events to try to get people in. So, and this is really interesting, and if you don't probably hear anything else, you ought to pay attention to this slide, because this is an interesting slide because it represents a really big shift that we have noticed in the Oklahoma City market in just the last few years. Traditionally, our client base has been life sciences companies in Oklahoma City. Tulsa, we did software IT, and that was sort of, for years, that was the story. What we've noticed in the last couple of years is a huge growth in software IT startups in the Oklahoma City market. We're still probably getting the same number of life sciences companies, it's just the other has grown. And I think that's going to mean some fundamental maybe shifts in how we do things and maybe some infrastructure needs and things like that to sort of continue to stimulate this area that really seems to be taking off in Oklahoma City. But so that is a big shift for us, and that's a big shift for Oklahoma City that we've noticed just in the last couple of years. Let's go to the next slide. So we were able to provide services to 121 different companies in this market. They received 413 different unique services. 59 of them received what we call the executive in residence, and that's the hands-on assistance from the sales or the finance. 112 companies participated in our entrepreneur in residence where we brought somebody in. We held 69 different networking and educational events, and we supported 34 student fellows that we placed with these companies or with I2E to work. Let's go to the next slide. Probably the biggest success story, and those are pretty good success stories, was what we were able to do with the Seed Step Angels. When we started this, we had either 4 or 5 angels in Oklahoma City, but I'll tell you that probably at least 3 of them were kind of angels in name only. They were just sort of joined so we could say we had some. They'd funded like 2 deals at $185,000. Look at the exponential growth that we saw. We actually got up to $3.2 million in total investments that our angels made, and we grew the group to 24 members now. And I should say 24 members and growing, because every time I do this presentation I have to change the slide because it's growing so rapidly. So we really created a dynamic group of angel investors in Oklahoma City that are investing alongside us in these startup companies, which is, I mean, those are really good numbers nationally. So we're really pleased with that. We've also done an impact study, go to the next one, to see, nope, go back one, sorry. And you know, everybody doesn't report, but we have 42 companies that reported, and the companies that we provided services to in just Oklahoma City, they reported $25 million in total revenues, $23 million in annual payroll, but if you notice, they really good wages, $83,670 average wage and 44 new jobs. So what we're seeing from these companies, and you can see the chart, the graph on there where it compares sort of base state wages to our company's wages, what we're seeing is the fastest growing companies and the highest paying jobs are these startup company jobs. And that by the way, those statistics hold nationally also. That's what we're seeing across the nation. Additionally, these companies that you've helped support and help invest in, they have raised $134 million in capital that they brought into Oklahoma City. So I think the project was really good. We, I think, had some really good outcomes. It was kind of the first of its kind deal that we've tried. I think we have a little bit of money left over, and we may come back to you in a later meeting and suggest maybe some ways you may want to invest that to kind of continue some of these things that we've seen some good results from. But with that, that's my presentation.
Good. Any questions of Scott? Scott, it was a great story.
Thank you.
The average wages are nice. The average wages, I quit too soon, I can tell you. Are there any comments or questions? Have a motion to receive the report?
So moved.
A motion made and seconded to receive the report. Are there further discussion? If not, cast your votes. The report is received. Thank you very much. Okay, item 4N. 4N now. Is Oklahoma City Economic Development Foundation fiscal year 2013-2014 fourth quarter report.
That's a mouthful. That's a mouthful.
It's hard when you can't see very good.
Hi, I'm Kurt Foreman, and glad to be with you. As the Chamber, we work as the foundation on behalf of you all to do a number of things throughout the year. It's nice to get to visit with you again. I think today's meeting is really a sort of microcosm of what's going on here in Oklahoma City. You have existing employers who are morphing into new and larger companies and deciding to do their growth here in Oklahoma City. You have new entrants like Sutherland who are companies in other markets who are deciding to make Oklahoma City a part of their portfolio of locations. You have the story that Scott told about how we're making those things happen. You get to hear about Project 180. There's just one thing after the other. And then the biggest thing, after almost 3 years worth of work, we're making such great progress on making sure that our largest single-site employer has the space and resources to thrive and grow and create lots of economic activity. So if I have to, to borrow Scott's comment, if there's only one slide, which I didn't bring any slides, if there's only one soundbite, it's that things are very, very good in our community and our region. A bunch of us just came back. The Chamber hosted a group in Salt Lake City last week for 2 days. We do inter-city visits every year. A number of you went, and we get to see how other places are doing things. Well, it's nice to come back and see how we're doing things because there's lots of great things. We can learn from others, but there's lots of very good things. And as you know, many people come here to learn from us as well. You've received the quarterly report from us. Included in there are a number of actual documents or brochures that we produce, our At a Glance, which is a great piece that sort of gives an overview of the community. We use that a lot with prospects. We take that on the road with us. You also have our retail flyer that was used at ICSC, and Tammy Fate, who's our new retail person who you met at a prior meeting, she used that along with Kathy and the mayor and a number of others to, as a leave behind, as they talk to people, as the retail evangelists, to have people come here. And so that's sort of the hard part of it. But if you go to I'm not sure what section it's called, but the one that has the sort of the graphic metrics here, just to sort of give you a quick highlight of how we're doing. We measure quite a few things each year. This is the end of the year for the purposes of our contract with you, and nearly on every measure, we have hit it out of the park as a community. On an existing business engagement, we called on over 400 companies. 300 was our goal. We've provided assistance to 130 of those employers, slightly below goal, but that means that many of our employers don't need help right now. They're doing great things, but they don't need help, which is always a good sign. The average jobs and that sort of thing, we are making good progress toward creating the kind of jobs across the spectrum that our community needs and wants, to have people at all levels of the economic spectrum benefit and have a better life here in Oklahoma City. On the attraction of new companies, we're about 1,100 over the goal. Wages were significantly higher, 36% above our average wage. Our goal is 15. The number of leads was a little bit lower than we expected, but what's interesting, we're seeing fewer inquiries, but the inquiries we have are extremely strong ones. They're real ones. Oftentimes you get inquiries and then they fade away very quickly. We're seeing consistently ongoing good inquiries, either that we've generated or that have come across our transom. And particularly in the last 3 or 4 months, we've been very active moving those toward decisions, and you saw the results of a couple of those today. On the retail front, we made some changes to our staff, and Tammy came on, but we didn't miss a beat there. We have made all the contacts. We've had tremendous number of visits. We continue to engage local employers, and we have continued to be able to engage retailers who want to know about Oklahoma City when we're at key conferences and meetings around the country. So I think on really every front, and there's a new website. We have 10 websites already that we use on different angles. The retail website will be live in September. We have a website specifically targeting Oklahoma City. One of the neat things about it is we've not just put data on there, but we actually have people telling their stories. So you'll hear from the general manager, is that his title? Whole Foods? Store team leader. He's the guy who heads up Whole Foods here. We have him on camera saying incredible things about the area and about their experience, and so it's going to be told from the customer standpoint and have data and other information that allows other retailers to drive to get more information and engage with the partners here in the community to make a difference. So we're real proud of a lot of those assets. But the good news is we've been out and about. We had 2 trips to the UK this year where we've started to carry the message about our energy sector, our aviation sector to other parts of the world. We're about to host a group of people with the help of Oklahoma City University. Steve Agee is going to be having an international energy conference in October. We're going to be hosting a number of people who we've engaged over the last few months will be coming here to see the area first person and engage with our companies. So we think the story is getting not just beyond our national borders, but around the world now too. So I'll leave it with that if there's any questions, but the news is extremely positive and we're seeing good things on all fronts.
Any comments or questions?
Just a question, Kurt, on this.
Yes.
For sure. Particularly interested in the average commute time and what an advantage that is for...
My commute this morning doesn't fit that number. Something was going on in 235 this morning, but we use national data sets, and so I'm just looking to find that one here.
The reason I ask is because I think the University of Texas or Texas A&M has a National Transportation Institute.
They do.
Where they quantify commute times and metro
areas
cost. It might be additional fodder for you to use that number for basically what would be income left in the family's pocket instead of spent while they idle in traffic. But, yeah, a little bit. Obviously, the petroleum industry may not appreciate that.
Right.
But that's a point. And then secondly, did you really sneak in the phrase retail evangelist?
I did.
Okay.
I did.
I want to make sure I heard that right.
I often describe what I do as we're the associate pastors of evangelism for Oklahoma City. We get out there and tell people why they should want to be here. Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Other questions or comments? Serious ones. Well, I thought it was interesting. We went from the bottom of the list to the top of the list in physical fitness. That, I think, is a real tribute to all the work that's been done to make physical fitness.
Absolutely. And we have the kind of quality of life where there are places to get out and do that. So, absolutely. We appreciate your support of telling the story, and then your support once those people are interested in being here, that you step forward as you do in your roles to make a difference. So we appreciate that.
Thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Now, we need to have a motion to receive the report.
Second?
Motion made and second to receive the report. Further discussion? Cast your votes, and the report is received. Item O. Kathy, this is your deal.
Yeah, this is the fourth quarter report for the Alliance for Economic Development. It's in your packet, and I'll just hit a few high points since it is getting late and they've turned off the air conditioning. It seems like, a little bit like Kurt, this meeting kind of sums up everything that we've been working on so much, but there are a few things that we work on through urban renewal and some of the other entities that we help with that, that I'd like to just bring to your attention. First of all, we do a lot of work with MAPS 3 and especially the Convention Center Hotel. We are in the process of preparing a financial feasibility study for the Convention Center Hotel and had a series of stakeholder meetings over the past quarter. We hope to be able to present a report to the City Council on that late in September that kind of takes it to the next step and the next decision point for the City Council on the decisions they need to make about proceeding with the construction of a convention center hotel. We also were asked to engage with the city and complete a convention center district master plan that was to help us understand the concept plans that have been developed for the convention center and how they would relate to the surrounding environment and how it would help development happen adjacent to the convention center. And so we completed that study, and actually that report was presented to the Convention Center Subcommittee this afternoon while I was here with you. On the job creation front, BNSF and Tinker have obviously been a big part of what we've been working on for the past quarter, as well as the GE Global Energy Research Center. Again, that project is being built on land that's owned by Urban Renewal. We've applied for an Economic Development Administration grant and have gotten preliminary word that we've received that grant, so we're finalizing all of the documentation and information that's needed for that, and all of the things that go along with that kind of transaction. There's a lot of utility relocations going on there now, and GE plans to start their construction very, very soon. We've been very busy in Northeast Oklahoma City. Through the Urban Renewal Authority, we are working to create a new urban renewal area north of Northeast 23rd Street. Typically, Urban Renewal has concentrated its efforts south of 23rd and in the downtown area. So we have an area that's economically challenged in Northeast Oklahoma City. During the past quarter, the City Council received the blight study for the area and approved the blight study and recommended that the Urban Renewal Authority prepare the urban renewal plan, so that we're in the process of doing that. That gives us some authority and power to do some things if we need to, especially in the area of land acquisition for economic development. In conjunction with that, we're also in the process of creating a new TIF district that will help us implement the objectives in the urban renewal plan, and that's underway as well. On the retail front, as Kurt mentioned, we attended ICSC with the Chamber and had a great visit. We finalized the Cabela's deal over the last quarter, which you're all very aware of. And we continue to work on retail in Northeast Oklahoma City, and not just the grocery store, but other kinds of retail to help provide that community with the missing parts of convenience, not convenience retail, but service-related retail that isn't there right now. In downtown, things are, incredibly busy right now. We've been working with, having discussions with OG&E and their developer about their plans on the Stage Center block. I think most of you know that the Urban Renewal Authority has also issued an RFP for the development of the block south of Stage Center, which part of the property is owned by the Economic Development Trust and part of the property is owned by the city. So those proposals are due in October. We had a pre-proposal meeting earlier this week, and it was attended by several different developers. We continue to work on finalizing the sale of the Journal Record building, and that looks like it's making progress and moving forward. They're doing their due diligence right now, and it does seem to be going well. Some of the other projects you know about, because they've been here as TIF projects, the Mighty Key building development for Tapstone Energy, 10th and Chartel Apartments, and then we have another project that's an urban renewal project. It's the Flatiron Building at Harrison and Oklahoma. It's a little triangular shaped building that Plyco is going to be redeveloping as its corporate headquarters. So that's just another project we've been working on through urban renewal. We also have some administrative things that we've been working on. We've hired a community development director recently who's been helping us with communications and outreach in Northeast Oklahoma City in particular, and helping us develop a model for community engagement that we can use throughout Oklahoma City. So it's been a really effective process for us so far. So with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions. There's more specific information in the report, but I'll be glad.
Are there questions? Comments? You need a motion to receive the report? A motion made and second to receive the report. Any further discussion? If not, cast your votes. The report is received. Next is our general manager report. Brett, do you have anything you want to say about that?
One thing I just wanted to bring up to you on page 2, which is the strategic investment program, we went through and identified some of the program or the projects in which we believe have been finalized. And I have given you a handout. I think Lena gave you a handout there that has the blue sheet here. I went ahead, since you allocated $23.5 million today of the GOLT funds, I wanted to give you kind of, when you leave today, I wanted you to know kind of where we stood on that. And what I did on this, I went in and adjusted the GOLT allocations and all the blue to reflect only what we paid out, because we do not anticipate paying any more out. With that, and this does not include the Sutherland and Interjex one that was before you today. There's $56.1 million worth of GOLT allocation, and those other two are roughly $700,000. So we're a little below $57 million for 9,300 jobs, and then there's some totals there. So I just wanted you to be aware of that. We are keeping track of that to know where we stand with the $75 million that has been allocated to this program. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
How much money are you going to get back from Chesapeake?
On the Chesapeake deal, we're not going to actually get any money back. On that one, we paid out approximately $1.9 million. The allocation was for $3.5. So we received $1.5 million went back into the bucket.
Okay.
Just to follow up, I think maybe Kathy mentioned, sorry if I don't recall, but the timing on the $5 million quality job reimbursement to the city.
It won't begin until 2018. So, and we'll get $5 million of the first $5 million that's allocated or received from the state, and then the rest of it will be divided between us and the county. So overall, we'll get $21.1 million back, but it'll take a few years. No.
Are there any comments or questions? We motion to receive the report. Motion made and second. Any further discussion? If none, cast your votes, and it is approved. Are there any comments from the trustees? Comments from the staff? Comments from the public? If not, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.